Okay, if you remember, we kind of left off with, on this page right here, where we had two sets of outlets, okay? One of them was for actions, and the other one's for an outlet for each of the letters. Why change the argument type from any to UI button? Remember, we did that in the pop-up. Since there are 26 buttons connected to the same action, you need to use the sender to determine which button specifically triggered the method. If sender has the any type, you can't access the title property. So again, we're going to be accessing the actual letter that the person taps on or clicks on, whatever, to pass that to a string or somewhere where we can store it, and then do an argument. Is that part of the word, and so on. So you need to have access to actual it's called the title, right? The title is the actual letter that's on the button itself, right? That's the letter there. So you need to be able to know what letter they touched. So that's what they're kind of talking about here. We ended doing that, right? So it's a UI button and not any. And again, we're going to be accessing the title property of that, which is, of course, the letter itself. So control direct the rest of the buttons to existing action. You'll know the connection is valid because the blue rectangle appears. Hover over the mouse, and we've already done that. Build and run your application. Verify tapping each button disables it. It'll become more apparent when I was inside. So if we put this up here, not this stuff that's right here, we can put that in there later, but this stuff right here, it'll show you that it is disabled. So let's turn on our Xcode. It should come up with your existing examples here, so you can in your list that you left off with. So I can open that up. Then again, make sure I am using the iPad Pro for my testing. And so where did we leave off? Oh, I didn't put that in there, did I? We need to put, what they want you to do is put this one in where the button tapped is, okay? The sender UI button right here. Do you see that? So what they want you to do is they want you to disable that by going, so here this function, it says button tapped. We put in the sender dot is enable, capital ENABL, enabled equals false. What that does is that sender, spell sender, right? What that does is it tells it to be grayed out, right? It's gonna, because you want to be able to tell the app to hey, you already clicked on this letter already. You already used this letter, right? Okay, so again, here's the code. I put it in the area where we left off with the button tapped. And so if we run the app, in this case, if it comes up here, it should gray it out. So see, I clicked on C, and now it's grayed out, okay, because it disables that, okay, and then of course, whenever that C then would be passed along to do the argument and everything. Okay, if you look at the code, you'll see it right here. So in the area where it says button tapped, put in sender.isEnabled with a capital E equals false. Anybody ready to move on? You got that? No? Okay, I'll wait a minute.
Did you just copy and paste?
So in this case, you want to begin the game logic. Okay. So I think I explained last class that you can make another Swift file that keeps the the logic of the game together, so it's not mixed up with the UI elements, right? I guess what I'm trying to say is you could take the logic of the game, put it in its own Swift file, and call data from that without mixing it in the UI elements. Right? The view did load. This over here is pretty much all the UI elements. It's the stuff that's actually seen on the screen, but you can actually put the logic of the game into another Swift file. Your first task is to display a list of words for players to guess. At the top of the view controller, define a variable called list of words. Fill that array with words, food, names, hobbies, animals, household objects, or whatever else. To keep things simple, use only lowercase letters. Whoosh. So again, we're going to go back up here to the top where all this stuff is. Before the view did load down here, you could either do it here at the beginning, or let me see how far up they put it. I don't know. Somewhere up above, though. Again, up here in the up here. We can put it at the beginning. So you can put a variable, and then of course it's list of words, and then basically you're making an array. We learned a little bit about arrays before, where you're going to use your round bracket, or square bracket, I'm sorry, and then put in a word. You should probably have a list of, a group of that's very similar. We can do fruit if you want. I'm going to do apple, peach. What is another one? Strawberry. Or that's too long. No, we can do S-T-R-A-W, strawberry, B-E-R-R-Y, strawberry. And what else? What is our fruit? Give me our fruit. Apple.
Grapes.
Oh, I already have apple. Grapes. One more. Banana. Is that a fruit? That's not how we spell banana?
No.
How do you spell banana?
A-N-A-N-A.
Like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, spell your names right, or your person's never going to be able to guess it right. I guess unless they spell it wrong like me.
It's your own spelling, so that's okay.
Okay, so they got 1, 2, 3. They got 6. How many do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, I got to do one more.
Dragon fruit.
That's two words, isn't it?
No, it's one word.
Dragon fruit is 2 words?
One word.
Dragon fruit. Nobody knows what a dragon fruit is. Apricot, yeah. How to spell that?
A-P-R-I-C-O-T.
A-P-R-I-C-O-T, apricot. There we go. Okay, now I got 6 words. Again, it's the list of words. Define a constant called incorrect moves, allow which establish how many incorrect guesses are allowed. So they have 7 in here. So because we have 8 pieces of art, right? That's why. Where does the 7 come from, right? It comes from the 8 pieces of art. So again, we're going to make a constant, let. And of course it never changes, so that's why it's a constant. Let incorrect moves allowed equals 7. Again, you can make your game as complicated as you want, more art, whatever, but this is the reason there's 7 there is because they get 8 guesses, right? Next, we need to define the number of wins and losses. This will be in the actual label. Remember, we have 2 labels. One of them will be wins, and the other one will be loses. Losses. Well, I guess it's not loses or losses. Losses, I guess. Of course, that needs to be a variable because it's going to be a number that's going to change, right? So you got variable total wins equals 0. Then you have a variable total losses equals 0. So get all that stuff in there, and we'll start down at the view did load. Again, we're going to jump down here next to where the view did load is. But again, all this is up at the top here. You're defining the constants and variables and the outlets before the game kind of begins. So again, once the application launches, the view did load method is called, right? And it is in the view controller. This is a great place to start a new round. Define a method called new round. Okay, so down here, again, we're going to scroll on down here to where the view did load down here. Now, if you just put in the new round here, it's not going to know what it is. You have to call a function of it. So again, here, right here towards the bottom where it says super view did load here, we're going to put in new round with a capital R-O-U-N-D with 2 round brackets. Then again, of course, it's going to give you an error message because it doesn't know what that is, right? So then you have to give yourself a function for that. Again, go below the curly bracket here. Down here is where we're going to make a function that is called new round. So we make a function by saying func, F-U-N-C, new round, like that, and then do your round bracket, and then of course you need a curly bracket there as well. Okay, and it automatically makes the other one. So again, down below this one, you make your new round, which is basically a function. Make sure you spell them the same. And now we can put some logic into the new round. Okay. So again, what does it mean to start a new round? Each round begins with the selection of a new word and resetting the number of moves a player can make. Incorrect moves allowed. It would help you to hold the state of the game inside a game struct. Create a new file in your project by selecting new file. From the Xcode menu, make it a new Swift file as a template, then select next. And they're going to call it game.swift. Inside game.swift, define a struct called game. For now, you'll know that an instance of the game has 2 properties, the word and the numbers of turns you have left to properly guess the word. So again, instead of putting all the logic of the game into the view controller, you can put it into a separate Swift file and the data can be shared between them. Much easier to do than squeezing everything into the view controller. Again, this is mostly for the elements that you see on the screen. To make a new file, you'll notice over here, let's look at the files we got. We got the main view controller, which we've been looking at. We have our main storyboard. We have our assets over here with our frogs in it right there. Is that correct? Then you have the other Swift files here. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually make a new one. It's going to actually go up here in this, where the next to the view controller. You want it to kind of be in the same area here. So you don't want it to be down in these other areas over here. Okay, you want it to be up here. It's going to be sharing data with the view controller. So if you go under File, New, this is how you make a new Swift file. You go under File, New, File, File, New File. And I think we did this in the last project. Didn't we have I made you a separate Swift file, right? For the one, right? So again, it's a Cocoa Touch class. Or no, it's Swift file, I'm sorry. Swift file. Woo! Got it wrong. Swift file. The other one was a Cocoa Touch. The reason why it was this one was because we had not just logic, it had UI elements in it, right? So if it's UI elements, you need the touch stuff here. If it's not UI elements, you can just use the Swift file here, which is basically, like they said, a foundation. You'll see it. So let's say next. So again, Swift file here. Say next. Again, make sure it's going into this folder right here. Do you see how it's going into this folder next to the view controller? Do you see that? And when they tell us to call it game, right? G-A-M-E with a capital G. It should automatically put the extension on. You don't need to put .swift on there. Hit create. Again, it has something called import foundation right there. That's all it has. It doesn't have the UI elements in there and things like that. It doesn't have the UI elements. Again, look at the folder it's in. It's in the same folder with the view controller. Do you see that? Keep these together. Okay, so then inside here we can define a bunch of functions. We could put classes in there. Remember, classes and function is what we talked about last week. We can put those inside here, and then we can share those classes and function with the UI elements that is in the other Swift file. To do that, of course, you can just make them like they have them here. You notice underneath the import function is where they put the struct game. So inside here we can say struct space game round brackets, of course, and then you can put some variables in there. The variable is word, and that's going to be a string. And then next is how many moves, so that's going to be a variable, and it's incorrect moves remaining, and that's going to be, of course, an integer. Oops. Oh, you got to make that a variable too. Uh-oh. There we go. So again, why is this? Oh, killing me here. Okay, here we go. So again, we have one variable here called word. That's going to store the word that that is being chosen. Now that's going to be chosen kind of randomly. That's not going to be a word that they don't choose the word. But of course you need a place to store it so that you can compare the word that is being clicked on to the word. Then you have variable incorrect moves remaining is, of course, if they make a mistake, it takes a piece of artwork away, and then it has to store that, hey, and of course they have up to, what, 7 times, right? Remember we had 7 times. Okay, back in the new round method, you can create a new instance of the game. You should create a property that holds the current game value so that it can be updated throughout the view controller code. You can give the game a new word in the initializer by removing the first value from the list of words collection and set the incorrect moves to the number of moves you allowed stored in incorrect allowed. Again, back in the new round, okay, which is back in the other code, you can create an instance of a game. So we're going to make an instance of the game that we put here in this struct. You should create a property that holds the current game's value so it can be updated throughout the game. That's where they have variable, current game. It's like what you're doing right now. And then it gives a game with an exclamation point, which is here, okay? You can give the game a new word in the initializer by removing the first value from the list of words. Again, that's going to be, I guess, the first word, right? Remove word. And each time it'll grab, I guess it removes the word, I believe, from the list, and that's why it's the first move. By removing the first value from the list of words collection, set incorrect moves remaining to the number of moves you allowed. Stored incorrect moves allowed. So again, game word new word. Where's new word is this one. New word is getting the first one out of the array, right? The first word of the array, and stores it into new word. So word is new word right here. Incorrect moves remaining. Incorrect moves remaining is they haven't done anything with that yet until they start the game. So again, you're gonna go back to you can go back to the main storyboard if you want and click on the view controller right here if you want, or you go back to the main storyboard. It should be over here as well, and then you go down here to where the new round is, okay, and you do need to make a variable called current game right there. So we could actually put that above here, I believe. I don't know, or should we put it down below?
Good to put them together. It's easier to see.
Yeah, down here probably, huh? Should we put it down here above the new round? Let me get rid of this. Should it be here? Variable. Current, C-U-R-R-E-N-T, game. and then colon game, and then exclamation point because it needs a value. See, that doesn't like that there. It doesn't know what current game or current game's not being used. That's why it's giving me this error message. It says the current game's not being used. So we have to go down here to the function down here and give it some information. So in this case, I'm running out of space here. Let me move my screen around here. So in this case, we're going to say a constant called let new word equal list of words dot remove first. That gets the first word in the list. Then you have current game equals a game. And then since the game is a struct, it has what? It has word and incorrect moves. You see that? One is a string and one is an integer. Remember that from the last week's discussion? So right now we have a game. The game can have it has a word that's part of the struct, and that is a new word. And then oh, you got a capitalized word here. And then you have also incorrect moves allowed, right? Incorrect moves remaining is the word we're calling it. Incorrect moves remaining. And then that is going to be stored. That's going to store the incorrect moves allowed, right? So that's incorrect moves allowed. Like that. There you go. Which is an integer. And so, again, it doesn't know it's having problems with current game.
We haven't defined that.
We haven't defined it yet, huh?
If you click on it, see what's the one.
What's that?
If you click on the blank here. Oh, it's not used yet.
Yes, that's the problem. It hasn't been used yet.
Where is the game? Is the game defined?
Yeah, in the game file.
So variable in current game is game. Should we put it below new round?
I think you should do where or let current game is equal to or where current game.
What's that? Hold on, let's read it again. Back in the new round method, you can create a new instance of game. You should create a property that holds the current game value so it can be updated throughout the view controller code. You can give the game a new word in the initializer by removing the first value from the list of word collections and set the correct moves remaining to the number of moves you allowed stored in incorrect moves. Why does the current game variable have an exclamation mark at the end? For a brief moment between the app's launch and the beginning of the first round, current game does not have a value. This is a concept that you will cover in the next unit, but for now just know that the exclamation mark means it's okay for the property not to have a value for a short period. This one right here. Now that you've started a new round, you'll need to update the interface to reflect the new game. Create a separate method called update UI that will handle the interface updates. Then call it at the end of the new round. Inside of this method, there are two pieces of interface that you can update with the code you've written thus so far. The score label and the image view. The score label uses simple string interpolation to combine total wins and total losses into a single string. Since each of the tree images are named tree X, remember we put a 0, 1, 2, 3 at the end, right? We can use X as the number of moves remaining. You can use string interpolation once more to construct the image name. So again, you can do something called update UI, and then of course you have to build the update UI. So they put the update UI inside here, and incorrect moves remaining allowed should be said how I spelled it. Hold on one second. I'll make sure I spelled things right. Incorrect moves remaining. Just want to make sure I spelled this one right. Did I spell this right? Okay, I think I spelled it right. Okay, so again, you could do the update UI inside here. Now, update UI doesn't do anything yet, but again, inside here we go update UI round bracket. So you need to make a function for the update UI down here. So we're making a new function now. That function is going to be called update UI, and that'll be used to, again, update the score as well as update the number of moves they have remaining. So if we put in function update UI round bracket, and then put your curly bracket in there. You got two things you need to update. Again, remember how we were making strings before and how to put things together? Okay, so that's sort of why they had that lesson in there. So you got a score label dot text, tells it it's text.
Score label spellings are wrong.
Score label dot text equals wins, and then colon, and then of course we have our forward slash, and then what is the value? Total. What is it? Total wins. Total wins. And then we have losses or loses. Losses. 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 And that is going to be total losses. Yeah.
I think you got type for it. It should be left parenthesis. Just before, yeah. Total losses. Total wins. Yeah. It should not be quotes, but it should be left parenthesis.
What should it be?
It should be the last parenthesis.
Oh, parenthesis.
Yeah. It's the variable, right?
Yes.
No, we need to remove the parenthesis.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Try in here. There we go. Is it like that?
Yeah. Same thing. With the backslash. Yeah.
And then quote after that. Okay, then we got to define the image. Which image is on the screen? Of course, we have 7 images. So we're going to go tree image view dot image tree image view dot image, is equal to UI image. Is that a capital I? Yeah, there it is. And then that UI image is going to be the name of the, what do we, named, colon, we got tree, right? You put your word in of what you named your graphics. Don't put tree in there, right? If you made your own graphics, you need to put that in there. So tree, and then, oh, I had the wrong thing selected. Tree, and then /, and then we got current game dot incorrect moves remaining, and then finally a quote at the end of that.
Current game G.
Remain. They spell remaining wrong. Remain.
G is not capitalized.
What's that?
G is not capitalized.
Current game G.
Current game, capital G. No. Struggling here. I can't have two things on the screen at the same time here. So again, where are we at? Score label, wins, total wins, losses, total losses. So we'll put some data in there. The tree image view is an image. It's a UI image. And then we have tree, which is name of the file, and then this should be a number.
Right. 1 to 7.
Yes. But it doesn't like something here.
It doesn't like the tree because you're using frogs.
Oh, I'm using frogs. Thank you. You're right. I do have something different than a tree. How come I was using a tree? Why was I using a tree? Oh, I was using frogs, wasn't I? What did I call them? Capital F? Oh, it's lowercase. I'm just making sure. It's lowercase f. There. And how come it doesn't have... Why is everything red?
What is the earlier red?
Okay, so we added a space here for the number of games, so because of the assets.
Asset has a space, right? From
Assets has a space between here, yes. So we needed to add the space here. Okay, let's move on. We built and run the application. Let's move on. So part 3. So far you built a working interface and you successfully started a new round. Now you'll need to add some code that progresses the game further towards our win or losses. Currently the button tap method displays whichever button the player uses to guess, but it does not update the game state. Whenever a button is clicked, you should read the button's title, right, to get the letter, and determine if the letter is the word in the player is trying to guess. Begin by reading the title that used when the button is normal state. Not all buttons have titles, so you'll need to add an exclamation point to tell the Swift compiler that your button does not have a title. You will learn more about exclamation marks in the next unit. You should lowercase the letter because it'll be much easier to compare everything in lower cases, then convert it to a string to a character. I don't know, for some reason it says the character has been deprecated, but it still works right now. So I don't know, they haven't updated this. So again, where it says character here, Okay, so let's look at it right here. So in the button state, button tap, this is where we turned it gray. Remember turning it gray? Because it tells it. So when you tap it, it turns it gray. Then it stores it, letter string, sender, the title. Okay, is normal with the explanation point because it doesn't know something yet. Then let the letter equal character, letter screen, lowercase, makes it all lowercase. For some reason, this character function is not used anymore, and it will give you an error message, but or a warning. So it's up here in this area where the person button tapped up there. Again, oh jeez, never have enough space. I'm gonna move this a little lower. Again, so the first thing you want to do is you want to be able to make a consonant letter string equals sender dot title, and then 4 dot normal. And then, of course, put the exclamation point because it doesn't know what it is yet. Next, you put letter equal character. And it's still in there. I don't know why they complain about it. And then that's a letter string dot lowercase case d, like that. It's equal. Okay, again, it doesn't like letter was never used.
Yeah, we'll use it later.
Yeah. Again, if you zoom in here, let me make this a little bigger. Now that you have a letter that the player guessed, what should you do with it? A game manages how many more moves are remaining, but it doesn't know which letters have been selected during the round. You should add a collection of characters to the game that keeps track of the selected letters, called guessed letters, and then a method in the game that receives a character, adds it to the collection, and updates the incorrect moves remaining. If necessary, by adding the guessed letters property, you'll need to update the initialization for the current game. So again, back in that, back in the Swift file that we made, you have to add a guessed letters, okay? Guessed letters. So they go back to the, hold on, I have to bring up my window here. So here in the Swift file, you see we have, oh, no, I can't remove that space.
It's not selected. File is not selected.
No, whatever. I was trying to make it look pretty. I can't even change that. No?
Waiting for something else. Now if you click on game script, now it will.
No. Okay, again, back in the code here for the guest letter, back in the Swift file, we need to be able to keep track of what letter they clicked on, right? So they clicked on a letter, which is a character here, right? Guessed a letter, character. Where does that come from? Character here. Again, we made it lowercase right here. Letter, character, lowercase. Then we need to mutating the function player guest. Okay, so I thought player guest. Did we add that somewhere? You're adding, how about that? Adding a function, player guest. And of course we use the letter that they guessed. Letter. And it's a character. And then we go guessed letter, append letter. Dot append letter. Then they have an if statement. If the word is a characters contains the letter then add incorrect moves remaining. Okay, it doesn't like guessed letter. We got player guessed. We have guessed letter here. Did I spell it wrong? So what is bringing over from the... Okay, so we have character here, character here, but then you have characters with an S there. Is deprecated, that's what I'm trying to say. If word characters contains the letter. I don't know what they wanted you to use now. Characters is deprecated. Please use string or substring directly.
But like you said, it's a warning, right?
Yeah, it'll still work. But this was an old way that they were testing to see what letter you had. Character, right? So they're saying you should have a string which you would store the letter somewhere and then use that storage in here instead of using the word characters is what they're saying. So again, we're making a function called player guessed. What is the player guessed? They guessed a letter, which is a character. The guessed letter then is appended to the letter. Okay. Then if the word characters contains the letter, then incorrect moves is equal to 1 or less than 1. So again, build and run the app. As you press each button, a character gets added to the list of letters and the player has guessed. And incorrect moves remaining decreases by 1 for each incorrect letter. So again, you're storing a whole bunch of data that is either a character and a location. So if we go back to the new round over here, You see it says let word, list of words. You can put the guest letter in there, in here. Guest letters. I'm spelling this wrong. This one should be guest. Player guest. Player guest. Did I spell this wrong here? Yeah, this is letters with an S here. Letters. That's letters. And then this should be letters there. Letters with an S there and there. So it's storing all the letters. So we need to guess letters is a list here. So they're going to need to store how many what letter they clicked on is basically what they're saying there. So we're going to put in guess letters. And then you need to store it like that.
Colon.
Oh, colon, yeah. Okay, so we need to make an array to store that. Then down here where it says function button tapped, up here, you have lowercase letter, current game, player guest, letter. Okay, so we need to store the actual game and the what letter they pressed here. So let's. Wish I had more space. Love to have more space. Letter. Oh, don't put capital in there. Build and run the app. As you press each button, the character gets added to the list of letters that the player has guessed. An incorrect move will decrease by 1 for each letter. Expect a separator. It wants a comma there. Do I need a comma there? Yes, here. Okay. So we have word, new word, incorrect moves remaining, incorrect moves allowed, guessed letter, store the letter that they clicked on. So all this last 3 areas that they clicked on is basically taking the letter that they clicked on, right? Taking the letter, the title, right? Whatever letter you clicked on, and storing it in something called letter is the character, right? And it's a lowercase character. Then the current game is player guessed is a letter. What is storing the letter is again guessed letters, which is over here. Guessed letters is adds a letter, right? If the word in the characters contains the letter, then incorrect moves remaining is -1. You remove 1. So it should reduce. We could put a break in there if you want to see it, or if you want to see it doing its thing, we could put a print down here, right? Oh, why is it doing this to me? Never have enough room. build and run your application. As you press each button, characters gets added to the list of letters the player has guessed, and then Inker removes remaining. So, can we test that down here in the console down here? I would like to see what's in the current letters. How can I do that? I don't have any values yet. All right, just lost everything. Okay, let me